Lord bless you all. I'm delighted to be here today. A beautiful day evening. Well, my topic is actually a little bit different. And the stereotype of ionizing radiation is always mysterious and a source of concern. But actually, there's a lot of beneficial application of ionizing radiation, from power generation, from nuclear power plants, to the food irradiation. Well, basically, my topic is a study of the milk's protein properties after it's exposed for certain dose of ionizing radiation and X-ray, and attempting to study the possibility to preserve the raw milk using ionizing radiation without altering any other gradient of the milk, such as a protein. The study is actually classified under food irradiation science, and let me briefly introduce what is the food irradiation and how is it started. Well, for decades, a different style and method have been used to preserve raw food products, and one of the most common methods that have been used for a while is the fumigation, which is basically spraying the food with specific chemicals. By the time this chemical has been shown an adverse effect on the human health, and from this point, the scientists and the human communities has been started to search for another proper method. And from this corner, the food irradiation has entered the picture. Although food irradiation is not a new technology, the milk irradiation is still under research, as there is no proper dose has been discovered yet, which is suitable for this purpose. Today, one of the most popular techniques that's used for milk preserving is the milk pasteurization. And the milk pasteurization, I think everybody of you know what is the milk pasteurization. It's a technique used to slow down the microbial growth inside the milk, as well as the pathogens. But recent study has been proved that the commercial pasteurization is not sufficient to sterilize the milk 100%, since there's a lot of pathogens and thermal bacteria still survive the commercial pasteurization, such as Coxella burnetii and O. coli 137H7, which is responsible for a major human disease. Well, since the first approvals of the radiation for food preservation, there are many foods has been successfully treated in terms of ionizing radiation, and there's others has been found around the sensitive targets such as dairy and milk in particular. Well, the milk after exposed for radiation, it has shown some undesirable effects such as off flavor and something like loss of its nutritional value. So this is actually what gave us the hints to do our study. We want to explain what's happening for the milk proteins after it's exposed for ionizing radiation using the UV-vis spectroscopy technology. Well, here's the materials, the equipment that have been used to accomplish this work. We use the simple diagnostic X-ray generator as a source of radiation. We use the UV-vis spectroscopy from model of Carry 5000. And we use the goat raw milk as a target of the study. The raw milk has been collected in the same day of the study of the experiment to ensure to be still fresh. And we use other, but this one had not discussed in this study, the gamma radiation. We use the sources, radioactive sources. Well, the methodology of the experiment has been carried out according to this flow chart. The first step is the preparation of the raw milk samples. And for the sample preparation, all the sample has been prepared in the same way. And we has used the raw milk without dilution to study the natural influence of the radiation on the natural structure of the proteins. Well, the next step is the measurement of the absorbance spectrum for all the sample before radiation. And according to the literature, the protein is basically a large molecule. It's composed of a small basic units which called the amino acids. The amino acid inside the protein is found in a form of a chain, and almost all types of proteins consist of 18 types of amino acids. The amino acids are classified inside the protein into major amino acid chains as well as into minor amino acid chains. The major amino acid chains, including the tyrosine and the tryptophan, which make the protein or makes the protein absorb the UV light at the wavelength of 280 nanometers to 300 nanometers, while the minors absorb the UV light at 305 nanometers. Here's, I don't know if the graph is really obvious, we see there's two peaks. The first one is representing the major amino acid group, which located at the wavelength of 295 nanometers. And the second peak is representing the minor amino acid group, which located at the wavelength of 305 nanometers. The next step was after the sample has been measured, after the UV spectrum has been measured before irradiation, is the sample irradiation. And we have the sample has been actually divided into three categories. First and second and third category. The first category, including the sample, which exposed for a fixed value of kV and different value of milliampere seconds. The second category has been also exposed for the fixed value higher than the last category and different milliampere seconds. And the last one has been exposed for different kV and fixed milliampere seconds. Well, for the sample of the first category, the sample which exposed for the same value of kV, which is 40, and different milliampere second value, the protein absorbance after exposed for this exposure did not show any significant change, which means that the protein structure did not affected by these exposures. The absorbance of the major amino acid chains at wavelength 290 meters did not affect at all, while the absorbance of the minor amino acids, which representing at the wavelength of 305, has gradually decreased by increasing the milliampere seconds value. And in this figure, we see the absorbance of the major amino acid group that stayed fixed and did not affect by this group of exposure, while the exposure peak of the minor amino acid group has gradually decreased by increasing the milliampere seconds. Well, for the second category, the sample that have been exposed for 55 kiloelectron at different milliampere seconds, here we can see that the absorbance of the protein has seriously affected by increasing the milliampere seconds. And in this figure, we see the comparison between the absorbance peak of the sample of the second category. We see that the absorbance of both peaks have been decreased by increasing the milliampere seconds. For the last category, which exposed for a different value of kV and fixed value of milliampere seconds, we see that the absorbance of the major peaks is, in the first sample, which is G6, has been totally disrupted, while for the G7 and G9, we see that the absorbance peak is affected by radiation. And this can be explained actually by increasing the kV. That means the penetration power of the photon is increased also. And the energy imparted by these photons inside the sample is less. So we assume that the absorbance is decreased, so the effect on the absorbance is less. So for the conclusion, the damage that had included by the radiation on the protein can be resulting basically from the interaction of ionizing radiation with the protein structure. Ionizing radiation initiates free radicals oxidation and catalyze other stage of the oxidation process. These lipid radicals, which is the SOR and the H2O2, are formed due to the radications. Well, the protein structure has affected the gradual by increasing the milliamp per seconds, and the damage has been inversely proportional to the Kv value. And the last one is the minor amino acid has been found more radiosensitive than the major amino acid because of the peptide bond to overcome these is required by higher energy than the minor one. Thank you.